Fat washing is one of the easiest ways to instill so much flavor into your alcohol, into your cocktails. Fat washing really started to begin in the bartending community with this incredible bartender, Don Lee, in New York with a bar called Please Don't Tell PDT. I think it was 2007. He had done a bacon fat washed infused bourbon old fashioned. So all he basically did was he took bacon fat after you've cooked it, or the grease of it, he put it into the bourbon, he froze it after it sat, he skimmed the fat off the top, so when all of that kind of fat rises to the surface and solidifies and hardens, you skim that off the top, and then all that flavor is in the actual alcohol. And it's an easy way to do it. It's very, there's a lot of flavor. You can do duck fat, bacon fat. We're going to do brown butter today. You can use different oils like olive oil, sesame oils. Obviously, the things that have more flavor and richness are going to work great. And then one of the inspirations for this is there was an amazing restaurant called WD-50 in New York, and Eben Freeman was the first bartender to do a brown butter fat washed rum. And it was all based on kind of the innovation, which is what I love about working with chefs, is the chef under Wiley Dupree there, Sam Mason, he had made a brown butter rum, basically ice cream. And he said to him, he says, can you make this in a drink form? So that's one of my favorite things to do. I love like taking inspirations of dishes and like a Caesar salad and seeing if I can make that into a cocktail. So I really identify with that. It really excites me. I get lots of inspiration from things like that. And really, to me, most of the greatest cocktails out there really have a culinary inspiration or root in them, okay? So we're gonna make a brown washed butter. We're gonna use a cachaça. Cachaça is a Brazilian rum, Brazilian spirit, I call it, basically. It is made from sugar cane. The main difference between a cachaça and a rum is when they take cachaça and they juice the sugar cane, typically what they would do with that is they would make it into a molasses and then they would ferment it. And that's what makes rum. That's why rum is sweet for the most part. They do not do that with cachaça, so cachaça tends to be more grassy and dry and kind of funky, and it's from Brazil. It's the spirit that they use to make caipirinhas. Caipirinhas is the national drink of Brazil. It's basically just rum, lime, and sugar. But I love Novo Fogo. It's an organic cachaça. It has amazing banana notes, so if you think about that, butter seems like a perfect marriage for that. So we are going to take one whole stick of butter. And what I like to just, as a simple rule, is we'll do 1 stick of butter to every 1 bottle of spirit. So we're going to heat this up. We're going to liquefy it. We're going to get it till it's brown, almost smoky and brown. And then we're going to pour it into a pot with the cachaça. We'll let it sit. But then the key thing is we'll put that into a freezer overnight, let it freeze. All of the butter will rise to the top, and then we'll skim it, and then we'll make our cocktail. So we're going to put a whole thing of butter right in there. And let's bring that to the stove and start heating it, okay? I'll bring my little cachaça with me. And all I need to do is liquefy this. And this will take, this is pretty quick when it comes to butter. But we'll let that dissolve and we'll let that get brown. And then what we'll do here, let's pour our cachaça into a jar. Or you could use a baking pan. We're going to pour this into a baking pan. Any kind of container will work. I'm going to have to cover this, but anything that has a little bit of depth to it, as you can see, it's going to come just under it. So that's all ready to go. Look at how quickly the butter is going. So that's not going to take very long. And the main thing is when that's melted and that's brown, we're going to pour it into the cachaça. We're going to mix it up, and then we're going to freeze it. So what you're doing to brown butter is you're just letting it get really, really super hot, and it will start to change into a, you don't want it to get black, okay? So you do want to keep stirring it. If you can see, these outer edges here are starting to get brown. So we're getting close, right? We want to get the brownness. You can see underneath, it's basically looking brown. So we're almost ready to go here. And I use a nice salted butter. I like actually having salt in it as well, because now that adds another layer. You've got salt, you've got the butter and the richness of that. And this is a cultured butter, but you can use any butter you want. Just for me, I would use a lightly salted butter. If you can see really rich now, it's brown. You really see that this temperature kind of changed the property of it and made it brown. So we're going to turn this off, let this be. You can see that smoke coming on. Let's just make sure we get that going. Perfectly brown. You can see the richness of it. And then let's pour that. I like to pour it while it's already hot, right? So I like to pour when it's already hot. So we'll take this here, and let's pour that right into the cachaça, okay? Woo! Is that a sizzle? Instantly, it does something to me. Like, you've instantly changed the property of it. I mean, usually I'm infusing things and they take 7 to 10 days, and right away now this isn't even recognizable, right, of what it is. So it's really, really fun, and you have fun with it. You know, do butters and oils and greases and things like that. Let's take this now. I'm going to bring it over here, because the next step really is to cover this. If you don't, listen, if you, in an ideal world, if you had a nice kind of, plastic container or some kind of thing and you want to have a nice lid for it, that's ideal. I just don't happen to have one right now. So we're going to cover this. I'll probably put, I'm actually going to put aluminum foil on top. But you could use clear plastic. And again, I just want to keep stirring that and getting that butter in there. But what's really going to happen is when I freeze it. Okay, so I'm going to let this sit overnight, and then we're going to come back to it and finish it up and skim the fat off. Okay, so I let this sit in the freezer overnight, and I've let all the solids kind of solidify in there. And now what we're going to do, I'm going to open this up so you can kind of see. And this is really true with most fat washes. You can see the fat and the solids there, right, are kind of hardened, right? And that's exactly what you want, okay? So the whole point of this now is, and this might be in pieces, you might have to scrape it. I'm kind of lucky here where I think I'm going to be able to, look at that. I'm going to be able to lift off this piece pretty much whole, which is great. There's other little pieces in there and stuff like that. And we'll just let this stay to the side. Not sure if there's anything we can do with that, but I will investigate that for sure. Now look, there's little small pieces in here, right? I can get a little bit more. If you have one of those spoons that has holes in it, or like a mesh would probably be really great for this. So these are the solids of the actual butter that we put in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to further strain them out. We'll put this into a tin first, okay? So what I'm going to do, because it's easy to put this through a tin, that will rest pretty easily. We'll take this here, and I'm going to strain this right into it, hopefully in a neat way. There you go. And see how much more you've got little pieces of butter you can still see there and that. So we're really kind of getting this. Now what's great about this is all the flavor is in there. So I'm going to pour this so we can really see into this jar. So listen, it's not completely clear or clarified, but what you do now is you have the spirit, right? That is not going to have all that stuff and solids in there, but it's going to have all the flavor of the butter. So now I want to give this a taste and see what we're dealing with here. Just on its own. Always love to taste something on its own before I mix it, right? Wow. Holy cannoli. So I'm a huge fan of this cachaça. This is Novo Fogo. I love it. It's got these incredible banana notes. It's got a nice funk to it. It's not unlike anything you've ever tasted. With the butter in this, though, it's so rich and creamy, and so people do this with a lot of different spirits. They do it with regular rum, dark rum, aged rum. They do it with bourbons. But there's something about this that I think is really incredible. And even though there's a cocktail I want to do with this, right off the bat, this is something that you could serve cold, just as is. That's amazing. I would probably put this on the stove. Two things you could do. You could literally just take this, put it in here, and put it on the stove. Remember, it boils. It has a lower boiling point than water and other things, so you don't want to burn off too much of the alcohol. But if you put this in here and stick that on the oven, just lightly warm it up and put it in a teacup or a little sake thing would be absolutely fantastic. I could see like having that, that's like having it at the end of a meal instead of tea, where you didn't necessarily serve dessert because it's rich, You also could just do like a daiquiri with this. So you could just do this, just shake this up with 2 ounces of this lime and agave and serve it, or do that and then put it in here and heat it. But I almost feel like it doesn't necessarily need to be mixed with anything. I just want to make that clear. I want to make a drink with this. I want to try something with this. But this is my new secret weapon. So enjoy, have fun with it. I think you're going to get a lot out of just how this is on its own. All right, cheers.